Hey everyone, so I'm making this video because I'm kind of sick of hearing about these fucking liberals who are trying to sexualize and over-sexualize our children. I mean, you look at like videos like somebody thought it was a great idea to take young children and have their parents explain masturbation to them in front of the camera. And I was reading through the comments because, I look at, watch the videos, commenting on this stuff, and, I pause the video because it's disturbing to me to begin with. And then I'm reading through the comments, and the comments are like, mention sex toys. I'm like, I can't even watch this video. Do you know how disturbing it is to teach your 7 or 8-year-old child about sex toys? Are you fucking kidding me? Oh, there's no reason for that. Here's the thing. Sexual exploration is supposed to be personal and private. Look, there's people like Lacey Green who went out there and she was teaching young adults about sexuality and sex-positive education, sex toys and stuff. I don't have a problem with that. I don't watch her. I've never seen those videos, but I don't have a problem with it because her target audience were people of consenting age. Masturbation, to be clear, is something personal to that child, okay? And a lot of children, don't talk to them about masturbation unless you catch your child masturbating, is basically the deal. And there's not really that much you have to say about it. I liked my mother's approach. When I was very, very young, I didn't understand what masturbation was, but I started masturbating very, very young. And I'm not saying this to gross people out. I'm not saying this to normalize it. I'm saying this is my experience with it. Now, I did not come from an abusive household. I was never sexually abused. It was an exploration of my body. Oh, this feels ticklish. Why does this feel ticklish? And my mother caught me one time. And she was very, very, very freaked out, as she should have been, because you see your young child masturbating, and you go, what the fuck is the fuck? That's the proper response, really. And she just goes, don't ever do that in the TV room. You do that in your bed. That's all she said to me about it, was you do that in private. And I think that's all the explanation a child really needs. And I didn't feel like guilty for it. I didn't feel ashamed of it. I didn't need her to go into context and explain it. Because as I got older and started to figure it out for myself, I'm like, oh, that's what I'm doing. Okay. And, I struggled with whether or not I should be doing it with my Christianity and blah, 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 and all this stuff. But, you know what? I figured it out for myself. And I didn't need my parents to explain it. My supposition on this is that children don't need you to explain masturbation for themselves. When they hit puberty, they're going to find it for themselves. They don't need to be told it's okay. They just need to not be made ashamed of it, right? Because it's a natural thing that children engage in, especially once they hit puberty. Adolescents, boys, they're constantly doing their thing. Girls, my impression of girls is that most of them are not like me. My impression is that, but I don't know. And here's the thing: there's they have access to so much information. They can learn this stuff very, very easily from the internet. But I do not like when people try to normalize it. So they make this video of parents bringing out sex toys for their kids and shit. And it's like, why are you trying to normalize it? It's something that's already normal. But it's not something that you need to normalize. You don't need to sexualize a child. And my mom did the opposite. She's just like, don't do that in public. Just don't do that. Do that in your bedroom, Like, and that's all I needed. It's like, oh, this isn't something that people do. Okay. And then, you have people in very liberal magazines and blogs and shit trying to normalize pedophilia and making arguments for why pedophiles shouldn't be, you know, discriminated against and all this fucking bullshit. And then you have like Teen Vogue, and Teen Vogue is sitting there going, oh hey kids, let's learn about anal sex. These are teenagers, you motherfuckers. Do you know how abnormal anal sex especially used to be? Very, very strange. Like, it's not a normal thing to stick your penis up somebody's butthole. That's a very cultural thing. I'm not into that, you know? And like, this whole, like, atmosphere of opening younger and younger people up to more sexual things. Why do teenagers need you to tell them that they should try anal sex? Like, what the fuck? Do you know, like, I view that as being, like, detrimental to the sexual health of a young person. There's damage that can occur from doing anal sex. Have you guys ever heard of the pink sock? That terrifies me. That's one of the reasons I don't want to do it, and it hurts, and it's like, it's gross. I don't like poop. You know, keep the poop. No poop. Like, and the other thing is, like, when you're doing anal sex, like, obviously you can't get pregnant from doing anal, but you can get STDs. Like, and I don't know, it just seems like a bad idea to be opening kids up to, like, different possibilities and trying to normalize something. And, you know what, there's a lot of kids out there who start having sex in high school, but I can tell you from my own experiences, there's a lot of kids who don't. You know, when I was young, and in middle school, I had some girl tell me that 50% of the kids were having sex. I look back in time and I go, there's no way in hell these motherfuckers were having sex. There's no way in hell half the motherfuckers in high school were having sex. There's just no way. You look at them, they're nerdy, they're awkward, they have absolutely no success with women. The vast majority of them don't even know what to do with a girl. Mass majority of girls are just like shy, or they hang out in their own little group cliques. And then you have the few people who are actually sexually competent in high school, and you can tell because they're always with their boyfriend or girlfriend. And if they're not, like, it's strange, you know? But most people hang out in cliques. They hang out in groups. They don't have the boyfriend or girlfriend that they're going to lose their virginity to. And from my experience, the people in high school who lost their virginity actively sought it out. It's not just normal. It's not even normal for kids to engage in sexual activity in high school. And if it is, I'm sorry that I'm wrong, but this is my experience that I'm speaking to. And quite frankly, I'm giving credit to both sides of the argument. But why do you have to teach 8-year-olds how to masturbate? Why do you have to try to make pedophiles seem like they're good people and that they shouldn't be discriminated against? No. Anybody who is attracted to a child should be fully discriminated against. We do not need that type of garbage in our culture, in our civilization. Okay? It is inherently damaging to children. And they try to seed all this shit in with the kids and stuff. Like, you have videos by, and this person is such a horrible human being. Queer kid stuff. Teaching children about consent. Children don't understand sex. They don't understand consent. They don't even understand when they're masturbating what that really is. They have no idea. No conception of it. And they shouldn't. You need... What happened to the innocence of children? Like, part of the innocence of children is that they're not initiated into the mysteries of sex. They're not initiated into the mysteries and the reality of the world. You keep them isolated. You keep them sheltered for a reason, so that they can develop and grow into healthy people. So they have a sense of stability and normality where they're not being abused, where they're not being put in abusive situations. When you try to argue for the legitimacy of somebody being pedophilic, that is inherently dangerous. When you argue and try to teach children consent as if that's something they need to know about at that age, what you're doing is you're trying to open them up to the possibility of sex and saying yes to sex. Toddlers do not need to know about consent. What they need to know is if somebody hurts them, they need to tell somebody about it. That's what you really should be talking about. We should have a show, not queer kids stuff, but regular kids stuff, where you go, all right, what happens if somebody touches you in one of your private areas? You need to go tell your mommy and daddy, because that's not okay. That's bad for you. And they hurt you if they touch you in those areas, especially without your mommy and daddy there, you know, protecting you. That's the type of shit you need to be telling them. They don't need to know about sex. They're going to figure it out for themselves. I don't know about you, but I had a lot of fun looking into my own sexuality, trying to figure out what I was into and what, you know, got me off and stuff like that. And I didn't even, you know, start looking into the things that turned me on and you know, kinky stuff and all that crap and sex toys and anything like that. I was at least 21 before I started actually getting into any of that. And that's when I lost my virginity. After I lost my virginity was when I started looking into, you know, more than just, you know, am I gay or straight? I knew I was straight the entire time I was growing up, of course. But something I've never questioned, really. But when I was exploring my sexuality, there's so many different things that you can be into and enjoy and so on and so forth. And I had a lot of fun, you know, looking into that for myself. I needed to do that for myself, though. If somebody had come in and been like, okay, well, let's talk about anal sex and how you should give it a try. Well, what do you think that really does to kids? Like you're introducing these concepts that they need to figure out for themselves. Sexuality is supposed to be an individual, you know, pursuit, a path, a way, you know. They're supposed to walk it alone or with their sexual partners who should be relatively the same age as they are. And preferably after they turn 18. It just makes things less messy, you know. We have 18 as the age of consent for a reason. It's because teenagers are rash. They're stupid. They don't understand the consequences of their behavior. They're impulsive. They haven't developed the rational abilities that older people have, where they go, you know, maybe I shouldn't have sex with that person, or maybe I should make them wear a condom, or, you know, maybe I shouldn't have sex with the guy who's just gonna, you know, treat me like shit and stuff like that. No, teenagers are really terrible at that. They're really bad. They do impulsive shit. I remember my best friend from high school, she and another friend decided that they were going to go for a swim in the Puget Sound, right at the marina, where the water's fairly polluted with like oil and probably, you know, some of those, you don't know what's getting into the water. It could be some human feces and stuff. There's a lot of boats right there is what I'm trying to say. You get further out, away from the marina, you're fine. You can go in the water. You don't jump into the Puget Sound right there at the base of it, where there's obviously quite a bit of pollution all around. There's lots of boats. You don't do that. And she did it, you know, because reasons, I guess. And they get out of the water. Oh, guess what? Right then the sun starts going down. So these idiots, they go to the local lake fair and they have to go buy clothing, expensive clothing that barely fits them because the idiots jumped in the water and got themselves soaked. That's what a teenager does. That's how a teenager thinks. They go, ooh, this sounds like fun, let's do it. Oh, someone's telling me not to do it? I want to do it even more! Yeah, so my concern, I guess, with, like, for instance, Teen Vogue coming and saying, oh, you know, you should really try anal sex, is that some teenager is going to read that and go, that's a fucking great idea. And then they're going to end up with a pink sock because they go, ooh, that's a new idea. I should try that. Ooh, this person's saying it's a really great idea. Ooh, 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 ooh. They're going to do it without thinking about it. They're going to do it without a condom. They're going to do it without lube. They're going to do it in a way that's unhealthy for them, and they're going to get hurt. They're going to ruin themselves. They're going to have issues. Like, no one talks about what the possible issues that you could have if anal sex goes wrong. That's a huge problem. It's like, no, there is very significant, serious issues that can happen with anal sex, which is one of the reasons why I avoid it. And then, on top of it, you want to teach them about consent. And Teen Vogue actually wrote an article on Queer Kid Stuff video about consent that's for toddlers. Toddlers can't give consent. They can't understand sex. They have no idea. Who cares if it feels good for the child if you're rubbing on their private parts? It's not appropriate. Even if they go, yeah, I consent to having sex or letting you touch me there. They don't know what they're getting into. They don't understand the full, you know, consequences of those actions. They don't understand the mental and physical and emotional, you know, things that happen. I was 21 when I lost my virginity. I'm glad I waited so long because I was extremely immature as a teenager. You know, I get frustrated and start to cry in high school, and people would look at me like I was fucking crazy, because when you sit there and you cry, and, you know, because you get frustrated in high school, it puts you behind a little bit, is what I'm saying. I would not have been able to deal with the emotional consequences of sex at that age. So, and people develop differently. There's obviously, like, my ex-boyfriend, he had sex in high school. And, you know, he's fine. He was ready for it. I wasn't. And that's why, one of the reasons why I feel like sex needs to be a personal sort of choice. It needs to be a personal path, a personal exploration. I do not like people trying to sexualize or try to put these ideas, these little Easter eggs in children's minds to try to make them feel like if they are approached by a pedophile who wants them to do something, you know, and they're asking, and as long as you say yes, it's okay. No, if you're a 5 or 6 year old and a pedophile is asking you if they can touch you in inappropriate ways, well, if you're watched, like, maybe the consent video by this queer kid asshole, you're gonna think to yourself, oh, well, they're asking me, and I don't have to do it, but I can say yes. You're putting that thought in their mind. So when it actually happens, and they say yes, they think that they're actually consenting to what's happening in that situation. And I'm telling you, children who are under the age of you know, well, you know, under the age of 18, first of all, but, like, I would say you have to be at least 14 to even comprehend what sex could possibly be. You know, and that's, I think that's a little liberal, but, like, you know, 2 14-year-olds having sex, I don't really have that much of a problem with. Now, 2 13-year-olds having sex, I don't know, it gets iffy when you get younger and younger. I don't like particularly the idea of 14-year-olds having sex, but I think that's a good age of consent for, like, teenagers having sex with teenagers. Beyond that, though, below that, It's disgusting. It's disgusting that you would plant the concept of consent into these children's mind. This is a conversation that parents should have with their children as they're entering puberty. And you start to think to yourself, oh, well, my daughter just had her period. Guess she can get pregnant now. Oh, shit, she's going to start liking boys soon. Oh, fuck. All right, well, let's have some conversations about sex. My mother's conversation about sex was essentially like, if you get pregnant, I'm not going to help you take care of the baby. And that, I mean, there was more to it than that, but I do distinctly remember that. I was like, oh shit, I'm not having sex ever. I don't want to get pregnant, you know. And I brought this up to my mom once. She's like, what? I never said that. And so I know it was just a scare tactic at that time and stuff, but like, she's totally bullshitting me. My mom's a really great mom. She just, I think she has, you know, unique ways of doing things that I don't completely agree with, but she was by far never abusive towards me or anything like that, which is, you know, she kept me safe. My parents were really, really, really good at keeping me safe, you know. They freaked out one time when I was like 5 years old because we lived in a small town in Missouri and a really safe neighborhood, and you know, I was like 4 or 5 at the time, and I had friends around the corner, and so I went from one friend's house to around the corner to my other friend's house, and my parents had no idea where it was. And they eventually found me, and they were so scared and so upset, and they were just like, Courtney, you have to come back to the house and tell us if you're going to somebody else's house. They didn't care that I had walked over there without them because we were in a safe neighborhood. What they cared about was they didn't have any idea where I was. And as long as they knew where I was, they could come check up on me and stuff. And then, you know, when I got older, you know, it'd be like, okay, well, we're going to start letting you walk around the store as long as you stay in the store and you come back to us. But if someone comes up to you, tries to grab you, tries to take you, or anything like that, and this is a speech that I got over and over again, you just scream as loud as you can, this isn't my mommy, this isn't my daddy, you know, as loud, and you know what, never had a problem with anybody. And if I had, you know, I probably would have bit them, kicked them in the balls, and started screaming my fucking head off, because that's what my parents taught me. They didn't teach me about consent. They taught me that if someone came up to me that I didn't know, and was trying to get me to do something, that I was to scream at the top of my lungs, this isn't my mommy, this isn't my daddy, somebody help me. That's what you need to teach your 2-year-old child, is scream if somebody tries to take you who isn't me. Scream if somebody tries to touch you who isn't me. Scream your head off. Bite them, kick them, scratch them, yell at them. Yell, make a scene. That's what you need to teach your children. That is the safe way to teach your children about pedophiles. You don't teach them about consent. That is inherently dangerous. You teach them to scream and bite and kick and cause a fuss and a ruckus. And you tell them that no one is allowed to touch them down there except for them, or if you're cleaning them, like changing their diaper, bathing them. This is a private area. Nobody is allowed to touch there except for you. Then when they get older, then you tell them about consent. When they're 12 years old, they're going to understand the concept of consent better than a 3-year-old. You tell a 3-year-old, don't let anybody touch you. You tell a 12-year-old, okay, so you know how I told you no one should touch you down there? Okay, well, when you get older, not right now, but when you get older, you know, let's talk about sex and, consent and stuff like that. And you break it to them when they're a teenager. You have these conversations as you see them start to interact more with the opposite sex. That's what you do. When they're young, you make it black and white. You go, no one is allowed to touch you there. And if they do, they're a bad, bad person. That's what children understand, and that's what they need to know so that you can keep your children safe. Do not teach them about consent. opens a can of worms that they can't comprehend. It makes me so angry. It just makes me so angry. These people who want to victimize our children. They're allowed to say these nasty things. And I understand freedom of speech, but my God, it's harmful. It is so harmful to children. These motherfuckers should be kicked off of platforms. You know? They should have an anti-pedophile rule on all these big platforms. Child pornography is illegal. The spread of information about how to be a pedophile or why you should be favorable for pedophiles. Nobody should give that a fucking platform. That should be in every single fucking company's, rules and regulations. No pedophile. No sexualization of children. None of that. And, it goes beyond this, too. I was watching this video the other day where this trans mother, so a man who turned into a woman, had a child, and the child was clearly a little girl, and the person, the parent sitting there feeding this child, "You're a little boy, right?" And the kid, I don't know, whoever posted the video blurred out the kid's face, but the kid was just kind of sitting there, just like, She goes, "Okay, well, do you like to do quiet things like little girls, or do you like to do rough and tumble things like little boys?" So essentially the difference between, do you like to do quiet things that aren't fun, or do you like to do fun things? It's like, I remember being a little girl once, okay? I like to do rough and tumble things. I used to go out, follow my daddy around when he was working in the garage. I remember one time I took this hammer, because I'd seen him hammering, and I started banging on a piece of cabinetry, and he's like, "Courtney, don't do that, don't do that!" Like, as I was putting a dent in his cabinet, and I was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and I was like, "Oh, it's okay, it's okay." My dad didn't see me, following him around in the garage and picking up his tools and playing with his tools as me being a boy. But this woman or man, or whatever the fuck that this person, them, their, whatever, they are pushing their own identity onto their child. The child's probably cissexual. I hate using that word. But they're probably normal, because 99% of the world is normal. There's nothing wrong with being heteronormative or cis-normative. Nothing wrong with it. To push trans onto your child when it's clearly not natural, when 97% of people are not like that? I think it's like 0.1% of people in the world are actually trans. You have a much higher gay population, but it's still only a few percent. So if you look at the entire world and look at it and go, okay, in general people are heteronormative and in general people are cisnormative, within our species as a whole, you start to realize, yeah, transgenderism is a disease. It's a mental disorder in your mind. This has been the consensus for a very long time. Why do you think the percentage of trans people is so low? Now, I understand treating everybody with respect, but pushing that onto a child? What the fuck is wrong with you? That kid's gonna be screwed up because you have an insistent need to push your own identity on somebody else, rather than letting that child just grow and be who they're going to be. I mean, I don't mean to be cruel, but I don't think trans people should be raising children. There's an argument to be made for, gay people not raising children. And part of it is trying to push their own identity onto these children, which is not normal, which is not, and when I say normal, it's not normative. I don't care if you're gay. I don't care if you're trans, but don't act as if it should be normal. And that's what these people are trying to do. They're trying to push trans people as being normal. So you can have young children who feel like the other sex, but why do they actually feel like the other sex? Is it because their mommy or daddy is pushing this concept onto them? Or is it because they actually feel like it? Of course, trans people shouldn't be shit on just because they have a mental disorder and they choose to transition. No, of course they shouldn't be shit upon. But to force it onto a child, if your child's trans, you follow them. They're not supposed to follow you. And they shouldn't even have a conception of what trans is. If you have a child who's actually trans, they'll feel it for themselves. They won't have to have you tell them. They won't have to have you ask them questions to try to frame it in a way to make them trans. And to me, this is just another way of sexualizing children, you know? You want to literally change their sex because you don't like their sex. Or because you want them to be trans because you're trans and you want your child to have the same identity as you. To me, it all falls in the same realm of child abuse. And it's horrible. There's a lot of people out there who shouldn't have children. A lot of abusive people. Straight, gay. As long as you're providing a healthy environment, I really don't care. But the moment when you try to force your identity onto somebody else, or you try to force, sexualization onto children, that's wrong. It is so wrong. And here's another reason why the whole transgenderism bothers me so much when it's forced onto children. Goes back to the whole children can't consent thing. You listen to a rational trans person talk about their experiences. They go, yeah, when I was young, I knew I was different. I didn't quite know how. And, they might insist that they're a girl when they're really a boy or something. But it's something that they remember feeling inside themselves first, rather than being an external thing put upon them. And a lot of them will talk about, well, I'm really glad I didn't start hormones until I was older than 18, because when I was younger than that, I could not have made that decision. I wasn't mature enough. I didn't know enough. I would have, maybe regretted it. And that's one of the fears, is these children who are being told they're trans, thinking that it's true, going through hormone replacement, and then becoming sterilized because they made the wrong decision. And then they decide to themselves, oh shit, I really am the gender that matches up with my sex, but now I'm sterilized. I can't have children. I can't do anything. You know how bad that fucks someone up? They don't know the implications of it. They don't understand what it means not to be able to have a child. They don't even have any inkling of wanting to have children at that age. It's so messed up in so many ways. No. Your sexual gender identity or whatever needs to be your own personal path. My personal path says I'm a woman. I'm very, very sexual. I'm straight. That's about it. I mean, that's what I've decided for myself. There's other stuff too, like the things I'm into, but I don't feel the need to go into that right now with you guys. That's my own personal, private stuff. And that was a journey I took for myself. Each of us needs to take our own journey to find out who we are, what we like, what we want to identify as, etc., so on and so forth. But you can't do that when you're 5. You can't do that when you're 10. You have to be older. You have to do that when you have the brain capacity to think through it rationally and realistically and understand the emotional and physical and mental, things that will happen, the consequences, so to speak. Children just cannot understand the consequences. They don't have enough experience. Wisdom comes from experience. Children are foolish. They are fools. They know nothing. They understand nothing. And to assume that a child could understand something like sexual consent, go fuck yourself. To assume that a child who has no experience could understand trans versus cis, go fuck yourself. And if I've offended somebody, go fuck yourself.